How does the rigging scheme impact the Seattle Kraken?
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Seattle hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you your favorite team every single day. Thank you for making us your first listen, your midday listen, or your late night listen. Either way, we appreciate you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. If we're meeting for the first time, my name is Erica L. Ayala. Thank you again for tuning in to Locked On Kraken, where I have been your host from the very beginning. I am also a contributor to CBS Sports, actually at a conference right now with CBS Sports. If you are listening to this and happen to be at the National Association for Hispanic Journalists Conference in Chicago, come say hi. I am also the founder of Black Rosie Media, where we empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. Ooh, all right. So the indictment on Tim Leiweke, the CEO, I suppose I should say, the former CEO of Oakview Group, is for involvement in perhaps rigging the bidding process for an arena at the University of Texas in Austin, Moody Center specifically, charged with a violation of Section 1 of the Sherman Antitrust Act. Would carry a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and a $1 million fine. Up to date, Leiweke has stepped down as CEO of Oakview Group. And we also know that Oakview Group has agreed to pay $15 million in penalties, while the other organization, Legends Hospitality, has agreed to pay $1.5 million in connection with the alleged conduct in the indictment. So basically, what the Department of Justice is saying is that Oakview Group, in its effort to win the bid for the Moody Center, made deals with, in this case, Legends Hospitality, and wanted to provide subcontracts so that they would remove their name from consideration for the bid for the Moody Center outright. Now, what's interesting is that this is taking the timeline, I should say, is between February 2018 to at least June 2024. That comes from reporting from the Seattle Times. Now, why that's interesting is because also back in 2017, there was an organization that was a part of the bidding process for what we now know as Climate Pledge Arena that was suggesting that the bidding process needed to be looked into. And that was Seattle Partners, was the other organization at the time bidding for, again, what is now Climate Pledge Arena. We remain firm in the belief that our proposal best served the people of Seattle. That's, this is coming from AG Facilities, President Bob Newman, Chief Investment Officer at Hudson Pacific Properties, in a letter to Mayor Ed Murray and the Seattle City Council. Again, this is 2017, so not the current mayor, but the then mayor. Unfortunately, significant factors throughout the bidding process have eroded our confidence in the ultimate execution of this project, no matter which group is selected. It's imperative that you closely and diligently monitor the process to ensure that Oakview Group is held accountable for all elements of what it has very publicly promised to the citizens of Seattle. Now, this is a letter that was leaked originally by GeekWire, and there were questions about the city withholding specific and what they called, quote, critical financial portions of the OVG proposal, and not showing those to the public, while the Seattle Partners plan was effectively released in full. And so there are a lot of questions about, again, just kind of questionable activity is kind of what we can say as far as what has been reported. When it comes to Tim Leiweke, he maintains his innocence. From a spokesperson, the quote that he has offered the Seattle Times, Deadline, other places: Mr. Leiweke has done nothing wrong and will vigorously defend himself and his well-deserved reputation for fairness and integrity. The Antitrust Division's allegations are wrong on the law and the facts, and the case should never have been brought. The law is clear. Vertical complementary business partnerships like the one contemplated between OVG and Legends are legal. These allegations blatantly ignore established legal precedent and seek to criminalize common teaming efforts that are proven to enhance competition and benefit the public. The Moody Center is a perfect example, as it has resulted in substantial and sustained benefits to the University of Texas and the city of Austin. Again, Oakview Group has already paid $15 million in penalties, 1.5 from the organization that they colluded with, allegedly. So money has already been paid out, while also Leiweke is standing on his innocence, but also he has stepped down as CEO of Oakview Group. Oakview Group saying that they have, quote, cooperated fully with the Antitrust Division's inquiry and is pleased to have resolved the matter with no charges filed against Oakview Group and no admission of fault or wrongdoing. We support all efforts to ensure a fair and competitive environment in our industry and are committed to upholding industry-leading compliance and disclosure practices. So again, no admission of fault or wrongdoing, no charges filed against Oakview Group, $15 million paid out. I mean, okay. Yeah, that's what we know. The Seattle Times, among other places, including King 5, I read a little from their article as well, reporting that this will not impact the Seattle Kraken. In fact, what we heard from the Kraken earlier in the week, today's news has nothing to do with Climate Pledge Arena or the Seattle Kraken and does not impact the day-to-day operations of the arena, our team, and our other Seattle projects, including the Memorial Stadium or the potential return of the NBA to Seattle. So effectively what I'm seeing is people have done what they need to do to separate themselves and or their entity from this indictment. That's about all we know. Right now, we're hearing that this will not impact the business of the Seattle Kraken, so that's what we're going to go on. $15 million seems like a lot of money, but hopefully the financial forecasting of Oakview Group with regard to those penalties that they have paid to make sure that there are no criminal charges brought. I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like to me. So this is just news about a settlement, effectively. It kind of feels like that. I am not a lawyer. I am not a business and finance major. And I like to think I'm a pretty logical person. But again, these are things that happen in business, how business is handled, even with the federal government. There are ways to resolve things with money without admitting any wrongdoing. It kind of reminds me, if you're an OGer, you know, I had a really difficult time understanding the investigation that happened in or with regard to the Chicago hockey team and some of the allegations and reporting that came from there, and saying that basically no one was to blame. It was just a faulty reporting system, but everyone did what they were supposed to do, and it was no one's fault. So are we going to fix the reporting system? Like, what's going on? In the case of Oakview Group, they're saying, hey, we're making these business collabs. It's well within the law. They're breaking precedent by filing those charges or bringing down the indictment. So I don't know. Are they tiptoeing the line? I don't know enough about business. I don't know enough about the Sherman antitrust law to make any kind of opinion on that. I just do think it's wild to um, stand firmly on your innocence, and also on the other side of things, for someone not to be charged after paying $15 million in fines. So a fine implies that something was done improperly, maybe not illegally, but improperly. So was the indictment just to get the penalties paid? Were the penalties so that there were no further legal action taken? Is it a little bit of both? Again, I don't know. And I think that's kind of the point when it comes to how even some of these things are worded. But that's the news. It's not supposed to impact the Seattle Kraken. So I suppose we move on. One thing, though, that could impact the Seattle Kraken on the ice is if Jared McCann gets traded. Once again, we're hearing McCann trade rumors. We'll talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. One thing I love about Monarch Money is that it's similar to some other apps that I've used. It's intuitive enough for me to be able to follow it, but it has key dashboards. I really love the cash flow dashboard. As someone who runs a business and I use Monarch Money for business, I have a lot of money not a lot of money. I have money coming in from a lot of different sources. I have money going out for bills, and everything doesn't always stagger perfectly. So it's really good to know on that cash flow dashboard where I stand with cash effectively in hand, and then I can make adjustments as necessary, change my projections, etc. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination, whether your first listen, your midday listen, or your listen while you're winding down for the day. I apologize in advance if I get you too hype, but I did see in the comments we've got some fellow fishing fans, fellow fans of the movie Big Fish, A River Runs Through It, another great one. There are some people that don't like my reading voice. I never said I was an elementary school teacher, so if that's what you're looking for on this episode, on this podcast, I'm not your gal. But maybe there's another YouTube channel for you. I talked a little bit about Tim Leiweke. Again, not a lawyer, trying to use my logical brain and not really clear on what that situation is. I guess is one of those things. We reported it and we move on. Everyone's saying it's not going to impact the business, so hope it doesn't. McCann, though, could impact what's going on with the Seattle Kraken. And once again, we're hearing that the Seattle Kraken are open and remain open to trading Jared McCann. And so this was David Pagnotta reporting. This is the fourthperiod.com. And Jason Botterill is reportedly looking to do more after the signings of Mason Marchment, or the acquisition, I should say, of Mason Marchment, Frederick Gaudreau. We've talked about Lindgren in free agency a lot. Apparently, the word retool is in this article, and in the process and the pursuit of a retool, saying that perhaps McCann once again becomes the focus. His name started to pop up around the trade deadline. He's still available. Pagnotta said he's somebody that we've been hearing that Seattle is open to moving. And, I think this makes sense. McCann continues to be one of the best, if not the best scorer that we have year in, year out for the Seattle Kraken. Since joining the Kraken, scored over 20 goals in all of his seasons, and has also eclipsed 50 plus points in each of those seasons. Teams perhaps interested in McCann would include Chicago, New Jersey, Toronto, who maybe want to improve their top six. So, that's one report. We're also seeing Yahoo Sports, or we're seeing, Hockey News say that McCann isn't someone that the Kraken are actively shopping. They're willing to listen, but are not necessarily putting it out there. McCann has a cap hit of $5 million for the next 2 seasons. He could be someone he could be someone that has impact for maybe the right price range for some teams. Other people like Yahoo Sports noting that also if you move McCann, that maybe makes what we talked about on the last episode not that big of a deal. Where do you find a spot for Berkeley Catton? Well, maybe that gives you Catton and Newman, but then you lose that offensive threat. And so it goes back to as soon as possible, does it mean the same to everyone? Is everyone on the same page? Because in my estimation, given how this team has performed, given what we have on paper, if you move a player like McCann, who even though I thought we didn't set up for success, yet he was still at the top for the Seattle Kraken when it came to offensive output. If you move a player like McCann, we are absolutely in a reboot, hybrid rebuild, retool, whatever. You got rid of who you expected to hit and never hit, Andre Burakovsky, and now you're getting rid of McCann. No Bjorkstrand, no Gord. It's great if you want to bring in young talent. It's even better for all of you Team Tank folks, potentially. But this is not a team that at least is looking to build on what it has and improve from there. Moving McCann, I guess it depends on what you get for him, but I think moving McCann is likely a step away from what was, as opposed to a clear step forward to what the future holds, if that makes sense. It's almost like a sidestep, like a step to create separation. If we're talking sports analogy, it's a step to create, it's a move to create separation, but not a move that's attacking towards the goal, if that makes sense. That's how I would feel about a McCann trade. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying the likelihood of this team being insufferable is better. The odds are better that we are not an insufferable team if McCann is on it. That's my opinion. If McCann is gone, it becomes to me a little clear that the goal is not to get to year 0 or year 1, I guess, of that perennial, air quotes for my audio listeners, that perennial playoff team. You know what? The thing that I like best about the potential, the possibility of trading a McCann, is that if we did that, at least the vision of this organization becomes clear. You can't tell me this is a team that's trying to win today and you get rid of one of your top scorers. and don't replace those goals. As a matter of fact, I talked about the comment the other day on the last episode. Maybe we're trying to replicate season 2. I don't know if that's what we're doing. I feel if a McCann trade goes through, we'd be doing what we did after season 2, which is making changes, but not actually at least replacing or improving upon what's going out the door. What do I mean? I did the basic math for us after season 2. Who left? Geeky, Donato, players like that, Sprong, and Geeky and Donato. Anyway, I did the math on the players like Ryan Donato, for example, that walked out the door after the playoff run. We never replaced a lot of that offense. We just didn't. Sure, you say we get Andre Burakovsky or had Andre Burakovsky thinking he's going to hit, never really did. And I don't even know how real that was because I kept questioning that. So that's my concern here, is that we'd lose a lot of guarantee on a team that is very unpredictable. The Seattle Kraken, you never know. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But I guess I will take that because to me it signifies that the vision or the process that we're in right now is clear. It's not people saying, we're going to be a perennial playoff team versus we're going to, focus on young talent versus we're going to be a playoff team as soon as possible. I don't know if it makes me feel any more confident about that very odd press conference. Ron Francis effectively getting promoted, letting go of Dan Bylsma. I still don't like, that was like an icky feeling in the history of the Seattle Kraken. But at least it would make me more confident that this is an organization that is following Botterill's presumably this is an organization that's following Botterill's plan, and that the plan is to maybe let go of immediate, present value in the purpose and to fulfill the need to build assets, whether it's salary cap, whether it's draft picks, whatever the case is, to continue to stockpile more assets and more value that can then be used to push into when we're ready to be on the other side of the retool, hybrid rebuild, whatever you want to call it. I don't feel great about it. I understand it. I understand the business of it. I have a lot of questions about what it would look in practicality, but it hasn't happened yet. Doesn't seem like the Kraken are necessarily the more active party here, but that they've made the field, if you will, clear that they're at least open to conversation. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about a Jared McCann trade? What would you want in assets and value back if we were to be without one of our top scorers? Coming up on Locked On Kraken, we will talk about the new staff that has been announced and give a quick little holler to PWHL Seattle and some news they dropped. That's coming up. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken. Whether you're an everyday listener, we're your first listen, midday listen, late night listen. Either way, we appreciate you. Talked a little bit about Leiweke, talked about Jared McCann. Do we want to see that trade? How would that make you feel? What do we want in return if that's where the Kraken are inevitably going? All of the goods, all of the goods. Yeah, so we'll see. McCann, I just want to circle back to McCann. 29 years old, has a 10 team no trade list as part of his deal. He was on a summer trade watch list by the fourth period, coming in at number 20 overall, on a list of 25. Jamie Alexiak also on there. I think that makes a lot of sense. He comes in at 19. So, yeah, I think that it's not surprising to see some of these guys, some of these Kraken players, as a part of that conversation. All right. But we have some new blood. The Seattle Kraken announced today updates to the hockey operations staff. They elevate Corey Murphy to Director of Player Development and Justin Ray to Head of Player Strategy. Murphy has spent the last two seasons, 23 through 25, with the Seattle Kraken as a player development consultant, working primarily with the club's defenseman prospects. And prior to joining, he worked in the Swedish Hockey League, Finnish Hockey League, Tampa Bay Lightning, New Jersey Devils. When it comes to places that he's worked, 2 seasons in the AHL, lots of experience. Played 4 years of college hockey at Colgate. Played in the 2007 IHF World Championships. And Justin Ray, who will also be elevated to head of player safety, to head of player strategy, will focus on player development for Seattle for the roster players, and will be on Lane Lambert's coaching staff. So while one of these positions for Murphy is more about prospects, Justin's role will be effectively with the Seattle Kraken, the NHL roster. Spent 3 seasons with the British Columbia Hockey League as a skills and assistant coach. Played in the British Columbia Hockey League as well. Went to the University of Maine and the University of British Columbia. So we got some fresh faces there, or not really fresh faces. They've both been with the organization. So some promotions. Congratulations. Hopefully this restructure will help the Seattle Kraken bridge what they need between the development pipeline, which we talked about a little bit a few episodes ago, I guess, and the active roster, which is interesting because that's something that we heard a lot from Dan Bilesma last year. I think that's part of the value added that a coach like Jessica Campbell brings to the table. So I wonder how these restructures, again, are going to help that make that even more seamless. I don't know. Was that a bit of a problem? I went through my whole fishing analogy, and part of the reason that story resonated, I think, with a lot of you is because we do have questions right now with how young talent is being developed. And are we seeing some of our young centermen die on the vine? I mean, maybe that's a little dramatic. I mean, I felt like as soon as it rolled off of the tongue, I was like, Erica, you're being dramatic, which I want to do. But also, I'm an entertainer. This is sports entertainment, people. I can be a little dramatic from time to time. Putting that aside, dying on the vine, that's a fruit grape analogy. That's, I don't think we're there. Maybe some of you do. I don't know. I do think that there's an opportunity to harness and foster even more development, especially at the NHL level, than what we've seen with Beniers and Shane Wright. But for me, some of the lack of development, I think, came from the confusing structure of the roster. And what were we realistically asking from that roster, or from Matty Beniers, Shane Wright, Riker Evans, etc., Ty Cartier on the roster? It was the role they were being asked to play night in, night out, conducive to their development plan? And I don't know that the answer was always yes. I do think that the development plan seemed to be more clear and communicated when it came to Shane Wright. I don't know if that is just because of his particular circumstances, why it seemed more public in that way. I know from talking to Jessica Campbell, there is a process with Maddie Beniers, but it's not been as transparent as what appears to be the process with Shane Wright. So I don't know. Either way, congratulations, stick taps. Promotions are always cool. Again, I hope that there's value added in these promotions in making things as seamless as possible. Before we close out, PWHL Seattle has announced that they have signed goaltender Carly Jackson. Now, CJ, as they are known, uses she, her, they, them pronouns. CJ is someone I've covered in the previous league, the first NWHL that then became the Premier Hockey Federation. Great human, funny, very charismatic on social media is the nice way of saying it. I think other people might call it a trap of thirst if you pick up what I'm putting down. CJ, great human, massive team player. Saw them win a title in Toronto while not really getting a lot of time, but when CJ gets between the pipes, CJ is the kind of goaltender you can absolutely rely on. And I do think that CJ, whether it's in the PHF or in the PWHL with, at the time, Toronto, hopefully now with Seattle, I do think CJ can earn a few more starts here in this league. And so I hope this new start with Seattle is a good one. We are thrilled to welcome CJ to Seattle, said PWHL Seattle General Manager Megan Turner. They are dedicated in every way. Just said that. As an athlete, a teammate, and an ambassador in the community, CJ consistently demonstrates our values and will be a key component of our goalie group and team. If you look at PWHL Seattle and what we're looking at, we know they have Corrine Schroeder, another goaltender I absolutely love. I can't say enough about Corrine Schroeder. So Carly Jackson signs a 1-year deal. The Seattle Kraken already signed Corrine Schroeder. They also have Hannah Murphy that they drafted. And so they have Hannah Murphy as their second round pick. I'm curious to see. So I'm curious to see what the kind of first to the true goalie tandem is going to be. Do you go with CJ, who has, of course, been around the PWHL, has professional experience, etc., or you have a young goaltender coming right out of Colgate University, who's impressive, 5'10", from Ontario, all ECAC third team, 3-time ECAC goalie of the week, ECAC goalie of the month, just so, Hannah comes from Colgate University, went to the PWHL Seattle team in the second round of the entry draft. So you've got Hannah, you've got CJ, and you've got Corrine. Very curious to see what that goalie duo looks like, or can they have a little bit more of a rotation and put themselves in a really good spot? But if you want to know more about that, head over on Saturday morning to the Locked On NHL channel, because the Women's Hockey Report comes out every Saturday morning. I co-host the Women's Hockey Report on the Locked On NHL channel alongside Rachel Donner, who is the co-host of the Locked On Flyers podcast. And if you missed our last episode, because Rachel Donner covers the Flyers, she had access to the new GM of Vancouver, Kara Mori, who has been a mainstay at Flyers development camp for a few seasons now, former head coach of Princeton, now going to be the general manager of PWHL in Vancouver. I'm a big fan of what they've been doing and what their roster looks like on paper. Big fan of Kara Morey, been following her hockey trajectory for several years now. So anyway, go check that out at the Women's Hockey Report. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another, and we hold fast, we stay true, and loud and proud we say, let's go Kraken and let's go PWHL Seattle. We can't wait to hear what your name is going to be. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.